Hello, everybody. I am back for another review. I know we've been doing a slew of movie reviews. As I said in one of my Cinema Folks news videos, I was going to be doing a bunch of movie reviews for some movies that I haven't seen in 2020 and some newer releases that are coming out in 2020. And we're keeping with that trend, and now we are talking about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Which is the latest from Netflix, and of course made headlines in the press because this is, of course, as is publicly well known, Chadwick Boseman's last performance before he had tragically passed away, and also stars Viola Davis and a big other ensemble cast. And It tells a story of a band, and they're trying to get their album ready, and you see basically the relationship that this band has, and a lot about how they are basically their own beliefs in how the world should operate and how they basically want power. That's basically how they want. They want power for themselves, and they want to feel that they feel like that they're the dominants in the room, and and they want to feel accepted amongst peers outside as well. Um, so um, and that's just on the surface. I think that that's kind of on the surface of what the film is about. And because the first thing that I will say right off the bat that really struck me when I was watching it is that the screenplay, in my opinion, is excellent. This is an excellent screenplay because it has so much more on its mind than how you're originally thinking. Originally, you're thinking, of course, it's going to touch on racism. It's going to touch about the times. But it's a lot more than that, and that's because of the beauty of August Wilson. If you've seen Fences or read any of his other plays, um, he he's like he's just talking. And I think that that's the great thing about August Wilson. He never is like trying to structurally put things together. He's not trying to, um, you know, make a three-act structure. Like he's literally just talking. And I think that that's the beauty. And I think that that's the best form of screenwriting when you're literally just talking, and you're just speaking on what's on your mind. And I love that. And I think that it created a gripping screenplay here for the basis of for the screenwriter, and they were able to adapt this play very, very nicely. Because there's a lot on its mind. Particularly, I think that in terms of what I believe the film represents, I believe it represents generational ignorance and societal acceptance. Basically, like to put it in a sentence, if you don't play the game right, you and the people around you will get hurt. And as we see play out in the film, I won't spoil it, but that statement comes true towards the end. Um, so but yeah, that was the thing that struck me the most was that the screenplay is just excellent. I think it's an excellent screenplay. I think it's the best component of the film, in my personal opinion. Now let's get to the ensemble itself. The ensemble itself, in general, is great. I think that each and every one of them brings their A game. Um, Viola Davis really holds her own. I really think that she holds her own in the film. She doesn't have a lot to do. I would say that she's more supporting than anything else. But when she's there, she is there not to fool around. She is there to bring her A game, and she definitely brings it. And I really believed her character. I really hated her character at one point. I really understood her character. Um, and once again, that's through the excellence of the screenplay, and also through Viola Davis, of course. Now let's talk about Chadwick Boseman. So, um, of course, going into this, I was very, very nervous about setting my expectations right because, of course, Chadwick Boseman's tragedy hit me really, really hard. Knowing what he went through is just terrifying, and I was trying to make sure that I would put those feelings aside and just watch a performance. I was not trying to watch Chadwick Boseman. I want to watch a character and not let those feelings blend into each other, and make my opinion um, muddled. I didn't want that to happen. So I tried my best to put my feelings aside and to watch a performance and not let those feelings get in. Thankfully, though, I can say with confidence, though, that Chadwick Boseman is strong in the film. He is very strong in the film, and I've seen his other selected work before, and I can definitely tell you from the work that I've seen that this is definitely his best work. I think that he really is, he's very strong in the film. Particularly towards the end, I think he definitely brings it. I will say, though, I do think that while I do believe he is strong, it kind of pains me to say this, but I'm kind of because I don't like talking about awards buzz, but since we are at that season and we are talking about that sort of thing, I'm kind of torn on Chadwick when it comes to that type of consideration sort of thing. I mean, I don't really know if I would put him in those types of ranks or put him in that type of conversation, but he is very strong in the film. In terms of just a performance, it's a very strong performance, and he really holds his own. He is the star of the film. Like I said, Viola Davis is really much a supporting character in the film. Chadwick Boseman's character is the main star of the film, and he's very strong, very very strong. You can see how much of an inspiration Denzel Washington was towards Chadwick Boseman as a performer. He's got all the mannerisms, he's got all the personality, and it plays it to his own strengths. Um, but I'm not sure if I would call his performance Oscar worthy. I'm not sure if I would put it in that boat. Everybody else seems to be putting it in that boat. But I'm not ready to say that just yet. But I do believe that it is a very, very strong performance. There are issues with the film though, and I'll bring them up right now because that's pretty much my positives with the film. So, in terms of my negatives, I know that it is based off of one of August Wilson's plays, as we addressed earlier. Um, and for that, the environment is going to be played like a stage play. So it's a very isolated setting. There's not that many places to go. There's basically like two settings, or three settings if you count the beginning of the film. It's really just three settings. It's the band's room, the recording studio, and then at one point there's a live performance. Pretty much it. Um, and with Fences, it worked very, very well to its advantages because of the dynamic with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis, and a lot of the direction with Denzel Washington as well, I would say, behind the camera, with a lot about how he paced his scenes and a lot about how he handled the writing as well, and when to allow certain moments to happen, and keeping the emotional heft there. I do think that the isolated setting here for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom does do more harm than good, because for that isolated setting, you do lack the emotional heft and strength that it so desperately wants to give you. Um, because the whole time you want this movie to like desperately like just go outside. It really wants to go outside, and I want to see them travel. I want to see them do the band, how they operate as a band, and I mean I know how they are as people, but I want to see also how the outside, um, like how like a little bit more of the outside, more of the exterior, um, just a little bit more. I'm not saying like make the whole film like a road trip or anything, but just saying just adding a little bit more details to it, because as it stands, it just did a little bit more harm than good for my own self. And like I said, it also lacked the emotional heft and strength that I do think it was trying so desperately to grab. Um, which leads to my last issue with it, which is that I think the film is too short. I think it's too short. It's only an hour and a half, and I saw that I was actually quite surprised. I thought it would be like a solid 2 hours. I think it really needed to be a solid 2 hours. I think that we needed more time to really develop and really get into these characters' mindsets and to really understand these characters much more rootedly. Because as it stands, I got a really good sense as to who these characters are. I just didn't feel them as much as I should have, because of that runtime and with that isolated setting. Um, so, and I think the direction is fair. I don't think it's great. Again, the strength to it is the screenplay. That is what keeps everything intact, in my opinion, and also the strong performances from the ensemble itself. Um, but I do think that it does have issues in terms of how it operates in its setting and operating its space also, because um, it doesn't really utilize the whole room. I don't really feel like I'm using the whole room to its advantage. I feel like I'm using segments of the room, because the thing about a play, if you're going to operate in the confines of how a play would operate, you utilize the whole stage. You don't just use a segment of the stage, you use the whole stage. And I just feel like the movie doesn't really utilize the whole stage, if you get my drift. Um, so I feel like it just uses like segments of certain rooms and stuff, and they don't really utilize the whole room. Um, that's just my personal opinion. Um, but as it stands, though, while its ensemble itself committed greatly to this, particularly Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis, and and the film itself is carried almost effortlessly by its wonderful screenplay. Its short runtime and small setting puts the viewer in a place that desperately wants to spread its wings outside of its confines and lacks the emotional impact it seriously needs to serve. Because I think that we could have had something quite more impactful if those other elements have stuck the landing. And in terms of the overall narrative, to some of that I take issue with, perhaps that's the point. But in my general opinion, it's not how it should have been received.